The Atlantic churns under a moonless sky, waves slapping against the hull of U-123, a German Type 9B U-boat slicing through the dark. The air is thick with the tang of salt and diesel, and on the conning tower, Captain Lieutenant Reinhard Hardigan squints through his binoculars, his breath fogging in the frigid night. Below, his crew of 44 men hums with quiet efficiency, torpedomen checking the sleek, deadly eels in their tubes, the radio man hunched over his set, listening for Allied chatter. The U-boat's deck gun gleams faintly, wet with spray, as the vessel prowls just beyond the glow of America's eastern seaboard. Hardigan's lips curl into a grim smile. The Americans are careless. Freighters and tankers lumber along the coast, their lights blazing like beacons, no escorts in sight. It's the Kriegsmarine's happy time, a slaughter of unescorted merchant ships. Just hours ago, U-123 sank the British steamer Cyclops with 2 torpedoes, its cargo of manganese ore now sinking 80 fathoms deep. The crew didn't even have time to scream. Hardigan's log already boasts 6 kills this month, and the U-boat's hull is painted with pride, white silhouettes of sunken ships. "Surface, maintain course," Hardigan orders, voice low but sharp. His first officer, Lieutenant Zur Z. Hoffman, relays the command, and the diesels growl steadily. The crew knows the game: spot a silhouette, dive, stalk, fire. The Americans, new to the war, haven't learned the rules yet. Their ports are lit up, their ships sail in straight lines, and their navy scrambles to cobble together defenses. Hardigan's men laugh in the mess, swapping stories of easy kills over mugs of ersatz coffee. To them, the Atlantic is a hunting ground, and they are the wolves. But 300 miles away, in a dimly lit room at the U.S. Navy's headquarters in Washington, D.C., Lieutenant Commander John Williamson pores over charts littered with red pins, each one a sunken ship. The losses are staggering: 87 vessels in 3 weeks, 400,000 tons of steel and supplies gone. Merchant sailors' screams haunt the airwaves, and the U.S. public is starting to panic. Williamson's hands tremble as he lights another cigarette. The Navy's destroyers are stretched thin, their sonar primitive, their crews green. But something's stirring. A new sonar system, ASDIC, is being tested, and patrol planes are being fitted with crude radar. Williamson knows the tide has to turn soon, or the supply lines to Britain will collapse. Out on the water, Hardigan doesn't sense the shift. He spots a flicker on the horizon. A lone tanker, the Norness, steaming toward New York, its stack belching smoke. "Dive to periscope depth," he snaps. The klaxon blares, and U-123 slips beneath the waves, the crew's laughter replaced by the ping of sonar and the creak of the hull. Hardigan peers through the periscope, crosshairs locked on the tanker's bow. "Fire tube 1!" The torpedo hisses out, a trail of bubbles marking its path. Seconds later, a fireball erupts, lighting the sea in orange. The Norness groans, splitting apart. Hardigan lowers the scope, satisfied. Another kill. But in the distance, unnoticed, a faint drone hums. A U.S. Navy PBY Catalina patrol plane, its crew testing a new radar set. The hunters are being watched. The PBY Catalina's engines drone through the pre-dawn mist, a low, throaty rumble that vibrates the ribs of Ensign Robert Callahan's chest. Strapped into the co-pilot's seat, he grips the yoke, eyes scanning the endless gray expanse below. The sea is a shifting patchwork of whitecaps and shadow, hiding predators like U-123. In the cramped cockpit, the air smells of oil and sweat. Behind Callahan, radio man second-class Eddie Malone hunches over a glowing radar scope, its green flicker painting his face. The new ASV Mark II radar is a clumsy beast, prone to static and false returns, but it's the Navy's best hope to spot a U-boat's periscope cutting the waves. "Anything yet, Malone?" Callahan calls over the intercom, voice taut. The crew's been airborne for 6 hours, fuel gauges creeping toward empty. Malone shakes his head, cursing under his breath as the radar blips fade. "Just fish and ghosts, sir." But Callahan's not giving up. Last week, U-552 sank the tanker Dixie Arrow off Hatteras, and the photos of burning sailors in the water are seared into Callahan's mind. The U-boats are laughing at them, and it stings. Far below, Kapitan Lieutenant Reinhard Hardigan is back on the hunt. U-123 cruises at periscope depth, the crew tense but confident. The control room hums with activity. The hydrophone operator, Petty Officer Klaus Weber, listens for propeller beats, while the helmsman keeps the boat steady at 15 meters. Hardigan's eyes are glued to the periscope, scanning for targets. He's heard whispers of American planes patrolling more aggressively, but he's not worried. The Atlantic is vast, and U-123 is a needle in it. "New course, 090, he orders, aiming for a reported convoy route. The crew moves like clockwork, oblivious to the plane circling above. In Washington, Lieutenant Commander John Williamson's office is a haze of cigarette smoke and urgency. The red pins on his chart have multiplied. 120 ships sunk since January, nearly 1 million tons lost. But the Navy's learning. Convoys are forming, escorted by destroyers like the USS Roper, fitted with improved ASDIC sonar. Coastal blackouts are finally enforced, dimming the shore's glow. Williamson's team has cracked some of Germany's Enigma-coded messages, giving them scraps of U-boat positions. It's not enough to win, but it's enough to fight. He dispatches orders. More air patrols, tighter convoy formations, depth charges on every destroyer. Back in the air, Malone's radar pings, a faint return, 10 miles out. "Contact, possible periscope," he shouts. Callahan banks the Catalina hard, the crew bracing as the plane dips toward the sea. The bombardier, Lieutenant Junior Grade Tom Hayes, readies the depth charges slung under the wings. The radar blip holds steady, a metallic glint in the waves. "That's no fish," Callahan mutters, heart pounding. He pushes the throttle, diving to 500 feet. The sea rushes up, and there it is, a thin wake trailing a periscope. U-123 caught in the open. Hardigan hears the plane's engines too late. "Crash dive!" he bellows. The klaxon screams, and U-123 plunges, valves hissing as water floods the ballast tanks. But Callahan's already on him. Hayes releases 2 325-pound depth charges, their fuses set to 50 feet. The sea erupts in twin geysers, shockwaves rocking the U-boat. Inside, lights flicker, and a pipe bursts, spraying seawater. Hardigan grits his teeth, barking orders to stabilize. The hunters are no longer untouchable. The USS Roper slices through the Atlantic's swells, its bow cutting sharp arcs in the slate-gray water. Lieutenant Commander Hamilton Howe stands on the bridge, his oilskin coat slick with spray, eyes fixed on the horizon. The destroyer's deck vibrates underfoot, its twin screws churning at 20 knots. Below, in the sonar room, Petty Officer James Carter leans into his headset, the faint ping of ASDIC echoing like a heartbeat. The new sonar gear is a game-changer, bouncing sound waves off submerged objects with uncanny precision. Carter's trained ear catches a metallic return, something solid, 800 yards out. "Contact, bearing 045, possible submarine," he calls, voice sharp with adrenaline. On U-123, Kapitan Lieutenant Reinhard Hardigan feels the walls closing in. The U-boat skulks at 120 meters, engines at dead slow to mask their hum. The air is stale, heavy with the reek of sweat and battery acid. The crew moves in near silence, every creak of the hull a potential death knell. Since March, the Atlantic has grown hostile. American convoys now zigzag under destroyer escorts, and patrol planes seem to be everywhere. Hardigan's last kill, a lone freighter, cost him a depth-charge barrage that cracked 2 fuel tanks. His once boastful crew is quieter now, their laughter replaced by grim focus. "Hydrophone contact, fast screws, closing," whispers Petty Officer Klaus Weber, ear pressed to the receiver. Hardigan's jaw tightens. It's a destroyer. Above, Howe orders Roper to full speed, the deck tilting as the ship surges toward Carter's sonar fix. The crew scrambles to battle stations, depth charge racks loaded with 600-pound cans of TNT. In the gun turrets, sailors swing the 5-inch guns skyward, wary of Luftwaffe spotter planes. Howe's been hunting U-boats for months, his sleep haunted by reports of torpedoed merchants and drowning crews. The Roper's ASDIC is his edge, and he's itching to use it. "Prepare to engage," he barks, voice steady despite the knot in his gut. Hardigan knows he's been spotted. The sonar pings grow louder, a relentless ding-ding-ding that rattles the crew's nerves. "Rig for silent running," he orders. Lights dim, fans stop, and the men freeze, breathing shallowly. U-123 creeps along, barely moving, but the destroyer's screws churn closer, a low roar through the water. Hardigan's mind races, surface and fight, or dive deeper and pray. The boat's rated for 200 meters, but leaks are already dripping from strained seams. He chooses depth. "Take her to 150, he whispers. The dive planes tilt, and the hull groans under pressure. On Roper, Carter's sonar tracks the U-boat's descent. "Target's diving, sir. Range 600 yards, depth 400 feet. Howe nods, calculating. He orders a pattern of depth charges, set to detonate at staggered depths. The crew rolls 6 barrels off the stern, each splash sending up a white plume. Seconds later, the sea heaves with explosions, shockwaves rippling like thunder. Below, U-123 shudders violently. Glass shatters and a battery case cracks, leaking acid. Hardigan grips a pipe to steady himself, shouting orders to level the boat. A crewman, Seaman Fritz Muller, wipes blood from a split forehead, hands shaking as he seals a valve. The Roper circles, sonar pinging. Howe smells blood. The U-boat's still down there, but it's wounded. The hunters are now the prey. The sea is a restless beast, its surface roiled by a summer squall that lashes the deck of the USS Roper with sheets of rain. Lieutenant Commander Hamilton Howe grips the bridge railing, his eyes burning from salt and sleeplessness. The destroyer's sonar pings relentlessly, tracking a faint contact 1,200 yards out. Below, Petty Officer James Carter's headphones hum with the echo of U-123, now a battered shadow of its former self. The crew is on edge, their hands steady, but their faces drawn. Depth charges roll off the stern, each detonation a muffled roar that shakes the ship. Howe knows this U-boat is tough, 3 hours of cat and mouse, and it's still fighting. Deep beneath the waves, U-123 is a steel coffin under siege. Kapitän Lieutenant Reinhard Hardigan crouches in the control room, his uniform soaked with sweat and seawater. The air is thick, oxygen thinning, and the crew's breaths come in shallow gasps. A depth charge's shockwave rocks the boat, shattering a gauge and sending a wrench skittering across the deck. "Damage report!" Hardigan snaps, voice hoarse. Lieutenant Zurze Hoffman relays the grim tally. Forward torpedo room flooded, 1 propeller shaft bent, batteries leaking fumes. Seaman Fritz Muller, his forehead still bandaged from the last attack, works frantically to patch a cracked pipe, his fingers slipping on wet steel. The sonar pings are deafening now, a death knell echoing through the hull. Hardigan's mind churns. Surfacing is suicide. The destroyer's guns would shred them. Staying deep risks crushing the boat under pressure. "Level at 180 meters, he orders, gambling on the hull's limits. The dive planes groan, and the crew braces as another explosion rocks the sea above. A light bulb bursts, plunging the control room into near darkness. Weber, the hydrophone operator, whispers, "They're circling again, sir. 2 sets of screws now." A second destroyer, the USS Lee, has joined the hunt, its ASDIC locking onto U-123's position. The Americans are coordinating, their tactics sharper, their technology closing the gap. On Roper, Howe confers with his signalman, who's just received a coded message from Leah. The destroyers will box the U-boat, alternating depth charge runs to keep it pinned. Howe's voice crackles over the radio. "Leah, execute pattern Delta. Set charges to 500 feet. The crew on both ships moves with grim precision, their months of training paying off. Coastal convoys are now tightly escorted, Radar-equipped planes patrol day and night, and Enigma intercepts give the Allies fleeting glimpses of U-boat movements. The happy time is fading, and Hardigan feels it in the creaking hull. Another barrage hits, closer this time. U-123 lurches, a fuel line rupturing and spilling oil that slicks the surface above. Howe spots the telltale sheen through his binoculars. "We've got her leaking," he shouts, ordering Roper to tighten the noose. Carter's sonar confirms the U-boat struggling, its movement sluggish. But Hardigan isn't done. He orders a risky maneuver, release debris, oil cans, a mattress, a sailor's cap, to fake a wreck. The crew complies, pumping the junk through the torpedo tubes. The sea above blooms with flotsam, and Roper's crew hesitates, scanning for proof of a kill. Hardigan uses the pause, creeping U-123 away at bare steerage. But the sonar pings return, fainter but persistent. The hunters haven't given up. Dawn breaks over the Atlantic, painting the sky a bruised purple as the USS Roper and USS Lee carve parallel wakes through the choppy sea. Lieutenant Commander Hamilton Howe stands on Roper's bridge, his face etched with fatigue but unyielding resolve. The oil slick and debris from U-123, cans, a sodden mattress, a lone cap bobbing in the waves, had nearly fooled them. But Petty Officer James Carter's sonar caught the faint hum of the U-boat's screws, a ghost slipping away at 200 meters. "She's still alive, sir," Carter reports, his voice steady despite the hours of strain. Howe nods, jaw set. "Stay on her. Full pattern, maximum depth." The destroyer's crews reload depth charges, their arms aching but movements precise, driven by the knowledge that every merchant ship sunk tightens the noose on the Allied war effort. Below, in the suffocating gloom of U-123, Captain Lieutenant Reinhard Hardigan knows the end is near. The U-boat's hull creaks ominously, pressure gauges flirting with the red. The air is a toxic haze of battery fumes and sweat, and the crew's faces are pale, eyes wide with fear. A depth charge's concussion rattles the boat, splitting a seam in the engine room. Water sprays in, cold and relentless, as Seaman Fritz Müller scrambles to clamp it shut, his bandaged hands slipping on the wrench. "Pump the bilges!" Hardigan orders, his voice cutting through the panic. Lieutenant Zurze Hoffman relays the command, but the pumps wheeze, overwhelmed. The batteries are nearly drained, and the boat's sluggish, limping at 3 knots. Hardigan's gamble with the debris failed, and the destroyer's sonar pings are now a constant drumbeat, closing in. On the surface, Leah's captain, Commander Edward Callahan, signals Roper to execute a hammer and anvil attack. The destroyers split, Roper swinging west, Leah east, boxing the U-boat's likely path. Carter's sonar tracks U-123's faltering movements, the contact sharpening as the boat struggles to dive deeper. "Depth 650 feet, range 400 yards, Carter calls. Howe orders a barrage. 10 depth charges set to detonate between 500 and 700 feet. The cans roll off Roper's stern, sinking into the abyss. Leah follows with 8 more, their explosions merging into a rolling thunder that churns the sea white. Below, U-123 buckles. A torpedo tube implodes, flooding the bow. Lights die, plunging the crew into darkness lit only by emergency lanterns. Hardigan shouts to surface, knowing it's a death sentence but seeing no other choice. "Blow all tanks!" The boat lurches upward, groaning under the strain. As U-123 breaks the surface, Roper's lookouts spot her, a dark shape wallowing in the waves. Howe orders the 5-inch guns to fire. Shells scream across the water, one smashing U-123's conning tower, shredding steel. Hardigan, bloodied but alive, crawls onto the deck, waving a white rag. The crew stumbles out, hands raised, as Leah's searchlight pins them in its glare. The destroyers cease fire, launching boats to pick up survivors. Hardigan's happy time is over, his boat a wreck, his crew broken. The Atlantic belongs to the hunters now. The Norfolk waterfront hums with purpose under a crisp autumn sky, the air sharp with the scent of oil and steel. At Pier 7, the USS Roper rides gently at her moorings. her hull scarred but proud, fresh from her victory over U-123. Lieutenant Commander Hamilton Howe stands on the dock, his greatcoat buttoned against the chill, watching as cranes hoist crates of new sonar equipment onto a nearby destroyer. The Navy's war room buzzes with reports. U-boat kills are down. Allied convoys are reaching Britain with fewer losses, and the Atlantic is no longer a German playground. Howe's chest swells with quiet pride, but his eyes linger on the harbor's memorial wall, etched with names of sailors who didn't make it back. The cost of turning the tide was steep. Across the base, in a guarded cell, Captain Lieutenant Reinhard Hardigan sits on a cot, his uniform stripped of insignia, his face gaunt from weeks of interrogation. His crew, those who survived U-123's final battle, are scattered in POW camps, their stories of the happy time now just bitter memories. Hardigan's hands trace the edge of a borrowed pencil, scratching notes in a journal he'll never send home. The Americans' relentless patrols, their improved radar, and the deadly precision of their depth charges haunt him. He'd underestimated them, and it cost him everything. The Kriegsmarine's wolf packs are still out there, but their fangs are blunted. Allied escorts and air cover have tightened the noose. In a briefing room nearby, Lieutenant Commander John Williamson briefs a group of young officers, his charts now showing blue pins for U-boats sunk, outnumbering the red pins of lost merchantmen. The Navy's gamble on technology, ASDIC sonar, airborne radar, and Hedgehog anti-submarine mortars, has paid off. Enigma intercepts, painstakingly decoded, give fleeting glimpses of U-boat orders, allowing convoys to dodge the wolf packs. Williamson's voice is steady as he describes the latest tactics. Hunter-killer groups, destroyers paired with aircraft carriers like the USS Bogue, prowling the Atlantic for U-boats. The officers nod, their faces lit with determination. The tide hasn't just turned, it's a flood. Out at sea, a convoy steams toward Liverpool, 40 ships in tight formation, guarded by destroyers and corvettes, their sonar pings sweeping the depths. Overhead, a PBY Catalina drones, its radar sweeping for periscopes. The merchant crews, once terrified of the unseen torpedoes, now sleep easier, knowing the hunters are watched. The U-boats still strike. U-552 sank a freighter last week, but the kills are fewer, the risks higher. Germany's submarine aces, once swaggering, now face a grim calculus. Every patrol brings more losses, more boats vanishing beneath the waves. Back in Norfolk, Howe boards Roper for her next mission, his boots ringing on the gangway. The crew snaps to attention, their morale high. They've tasted victory, and they're hungry for more. As the destroyer casts off, her screws churn the water, and Howe gazes at the horizon. The Atlantic is no longer a graveyard for Allied ships. It's a battlefield where the hunted have become